Spinthabin was found on a Hallandale beach sidewalk in late August 2025, his life cut short at just 25 years old. What followed wasn't just another headline about violence. It was the unraveling of a story layered with family ties, music industry highs and lows, personal battles, and a that police believed was far from random. In this video, we'll break down the events leading up to that night, the investigation that followed, and the deeper struggles that shaped his path. The making of Wam Spinthabin. Wam Spinthabin got his rap name from the trenches in Hallandale, where spinning meant cruising through the block to see what's moving. Hallandale Beach carried that mix of image and reality. Outsiders thought beach meant vacation, but once you crossed the tracks, it turned into the hood. Rent dropped, corner stores looked different, and were part of the backdrop. Growing up there, choices were limited. In the middle of the hood sat a football field right next to a graveyard, a daily reminder of two possible futures. For kids his age group, it wasn't dope dealing like older generations. It was burglaries and break-ins that became the hustle. That environment pulled him in, even though he came from a solid household. Both his parents were present. His mom pushed school, his dad emphasized sports, discipline, and learning to fight. His father had been in the streets before, but he tried to steer Wam away from it, teaching him how to be a man without putting him on game about crime. Despite that structure, the streets around Hallandale were unavoidable. The appeal of fast money and the influence of peers outweighed the lessons at home. Even with both parents in his life, Wam chose his own path, shaped by the reality of growing up in an environment where the graveyard was just steps away from the football field. Even though he grew up with both parents present, his mom focused on school and his dad on discipline, sports, and staying out of trouble, Wam still gravitated to the trenches. His father had been in the streets himself but never raised Wam in it, instead pushing him to be a man without leaning on crime. Despite that foundation, Hallandale's environment was stronger. The turning point came on October 16, 2016, when his cousins Jill and Wiz the Wizard were. Wam was 15 at the time, and those losses broke something in him. Jill was the first one to go. This shook Wam a lot since he was like a brother he had grown up with since diapers. After Jill's, Wam's focus shifted completely. He didn't care about school, sports, or even arguments with his mom. He was fueled by anger, reckless, and numb. That's when he fully turned toward the streets. Not long after, Wiz came home from serving time on a charge he caught with Kodak in 2016. Wam was already close with him, but their bond tightened after Jill's. Wiz had only 6 days left before release and Wam followed his lead blindly. If Wiz wanted to move on to something, Wam was right there with him. That loyalty pulled him in head first, setting the course for everything that followed. Wiz the Wizard shook Broward County to its core. On the morning of September 17, 2021, the rapper, born Wisdom Williams, was found outside a Hallandale beach home. A dog walker discovered his body near Northwest 6th Terrace and 10th Street around 6:30 a.m., sparking immediate police response. He had grown up in that very area, but hadn't been living there at the time, which raised even more questions about why his body turned up there. What made the scene even stranger was the lack of obvious evidence. Reports said there were no clear gunshot wounds, no sounds of a shootout, and no sign of a violent struggle. Authorities confirmed there was trauma to his body, but held back on explaining exactly what caused it. That silence only fueled speculation. Whispers spread fast across social media that something darker had gone down, some even suggesting his death was tied to rapper HMT Trey. Wiz wasn't just another local rapper. He was tied to Kodak Black's Sniper Gang, one of the strongest movements out of Florida at the time. His sudden passing didn't just rattle fans, it left his crew fractured and Broward's rap scene reeling. Kodak himself broke silence days later, admitting the pain hit like family. And while police treated the case as foul play, no arrests were made in the immediate aftermath, leaving Wiz's clouded in mystery. Wam described it as carrying a broken heart. From 2016 to 2020, between Jill's and Wiz's, everything shifted. He stopped smiling, stopped caring about school or sports, and carried himself with constant anger. Losing Jill pushed him toward the streets, but losing Wiz left him feeling like part of him too. It was the kind of pain that changed his entire outlook on life, leaving him numb and dangerous at the same time. His love for music wasn't random. Growing up, his mom exposed him to Biggie and Tupac, and he performed Michael Jackson routines in school. That stage presence was always in him, even if he didn't recognize it until later. But up through 2018, his dream was still football, even if the streets had already taken that away. Wam came up as part of the younger crowd in Hallandale. While the area split into sections like the 10, the 3, and the 7, he wasn't formally tied to those older crews. Instead, he moved with his own circle. He didn't really have mentors in the streets, so he had to learn by himself. With Wiz at his side, he was thrown into wild situations early, living off adrenaline and the rush of fast money. He admitted that at first, it was fun. Burglary, chaos, street politics. It gave him the same high sports once did. That's where Double M, more money, more became his lane. For him, the focus wasn't to be labeled, but to chase money and status. Still, he carried anger everywhere. Even as he stepped further into rap, he said he hated the studio and hated the process. Music was supposed to be an escape, but the losses before rap always weighed heavier than the gains after it. From 2021 onward, he tried to change, humbled by everything he'd been through, but the anger never left, and he knew it was holding him back from both music and life. Wam's battle with demons. By 2018, Wam knew he was already too deep. After Jill's death, he got locked up in a program where he met Hot Boy. When he came home, he kept moving heavier in the streets. By the time Wiz beat a major case, Kodak Black reached out. In the same week Wiz walked free, Kodak was pardoned, and that's when Wam met Yak on Super Bowl Sunday in Tampa when Tom Brady won. That same week, he signed with Sniper Gang for $30,000. Kodak gave him the platform, and Hot Boy, who knew Wam from Juvie, vouched for him as solid. He landed a feature off respect alone. Still, Wam admitted that if he'd taken rap more seriously, he'd be further than where he ended up. After Wiz's, he bought out his SG contract for $300,000 and signed with Alamo/Sony. That deal put him in a better position, and he gave credit to the label for helping him rebuild. At the same time, he was battling his own demons. He said he was hard to work with, not just for the label, but in life. He was difficult as a son, father, and partner, carrying anger and addiction everywhere. Perks became his worst vice. He and WizHod used together, but after WizD'd, his use spiraled. He overdosed twice. The first time, his heart stopped for 20 minutes. The second time, he was on life support for 12 days. He admitted those moments changed him, humbled him, and forced him to look at himself differently.
I'm gonna keep it real. After Wiz died, my other close brother, his name was Blood. Like his real name was Mondo. I ain't gonna lie, I had overdose type shit. I done it.
Wam carried deep anger that never went away. He admitted waking up mad most days, not on some wild psycho energy, but from years of trauma and loss. From 2016 to 2022, he lost a total of 7 close friends and family in 6 years. The weight of those left him with PTSD, shaping why his music stayed filled with pain. Wam's drug spiral nearly killed him twice. The first overdose left him unresponsive until paramedics hit him with Narcan and rushed him to the hospital. The second time was worse. After his close friend was Wam overdosed again and ended up on life support for 12 days, machines keeping him alive. That was just a year before his own. He later said those moments felt like part of him, but also forced him to change, making him stronger and more humbled. The pain behind his music came from living through things most people never face. While some lose 1 or 2 friends and call it tragic, he had buried multiple family and homies in just a few years. By 2018, he already knew he was too far in, both in the streets and in the industry lane he was stepping into. Even with contracts, features, and label support, Wam's reality was still shaped by trauma, anger, and addiction. He described carrying PTSD from years of watching loved ones die, admitting it left him waking up angry for no reason. He recognized the changes he had to make, but the weight of everything he lived through never left him, and it showed in both his music and the way he moved. Wam's music stayed heavy because it came straight from pain most people never lived through. While some lose 1 or 2 friends, he had stacked losses year after year, making his reality feel like something out of a movie. That trauma left him angry, and by 2018, he already knew he was too far in. both in the streets and in what was becoming a rap career. Meeting Hot Boy while locked up and linking with Kodak through Wiz opened doors, but the weight of what he'd lived through never left. By the time Wam was visibly mad in interviews. He admitted he carried that rage every day, and people could see it even when he tried to hide it. After overdosing twice and surviving life support, he felt like he'd already beat, saying nothing could stop him because God had given him another chance. That sense of survival made him move like couldn't scare him anymore. His relationship with Kodak had rocky moments, especially during public spats after Wiz passed, but he later clarified there was no real static. Kodak had opened doors for him, given him an opportunity, and Wam couldn't take that away. Despite disagreements, he acknowledged their bond and even hinted at possible work together in the future. Wam was focused on building a future beyond rap. With management in place and tours lined up, his goal was to make money and eventually step away from music within a few years. The plan was to invest in businesses like gas stations, drywall companies, and casinos, inspired by figures such as Michael Franzese, who transitioned from the underworld into legitimate enterprise. Despite that vision, public perception often worked against him. His image, the way he dressed, spoke, and carried himself, made people assume he was coming to cause trouble. Online reactions were just as harsh. Post money and people called it flaunting. Stop posting and people claimed he was broke. Blowing through in advance only fueled the talk, even though he was signed to Sony and operating on a much bigger scale than most understood. The internet became a constant trap. Narratives painted him as aggressive or unstable, the same way false stories spread about Wiz's. At times, he reacted, making it clear disrespect carried consequences, comparing it to Nipsey's infamous slap at the BET Awards, where boundaries were crossed. Away from the cameras, Wam was naturally antisocial, something his label disliked because rap demanded visibility and constant online presence. The industry wanted him active and in people's faces, while his personality leaned the other way. That tension defined his career, caught between a business mindset built for longevity and an image shaped by the streets and the internet's expectations. Away from the cameras, he was building. An album called The Blueprint and a documentary were in motion, with plans to drop around summer. He also launched a clothing line called Painkillers, meant to symbolize overcoming pain instead of numbing it. Music was finally being taken serious, 15 to 22 songs loaded with pressure. Wam's battles with addiction pushed him to the edge of on 2 separate occasions. Both times he pulled through, but he carried those moments as life-altering. In the first near experience, he described being trapped in a place of silence mixed with screams, a vision he likened to hell, before suddenly being lifted into a clear sky with gates ahead, like a glimpse of heaven. He didn't encounter God in that moment, but he did see his late friend Will, staring back at him as if to say it wasn't his time to go. Those near experiences became turning points. He credited his parents, his girl, and a few friends for helping him pull through, speaking life into him when he needed it most. Still, he emphasized that recovery had to come from within. No amount of advice from others could work if he wasn't ready to change. He was open about the reality of addiction. Mixing pills like perks with other substances could be, and many people were silently battling it without admitting they were addicted. He urged people to seek real help, including treatments like Suboxone or methadone under medical supervision, stressing that it was a path that worked for many. For him, faith and free will tied it all together. He believed God gave people the choice to act, and what they did with that freedom determined their path. Having seen both the brink of and what he believed was life after, he held on to the conviction that change was possible, but only if a person truly wanted it for themselves, killed by his own. But the cycle didn't let up. Months after making that vow, Wam himself was not by an enemy or an op from the streets, but by someone close to him. It was the same tragic pattern Broward has seen over and over. Talented rappers signed into Kodak's circle, from Jack Boy to 22 GZs to Wiz the Wizard, all ending up falling out, locked up, or gone. Wam's added one more name to that list, showing how often the blows come from family and friends, not outsiders. On August 29, 2025, Hallandale Beach Police responded to a shot-spotter alert on the 500 block of Northwest 6th Avenue. When officers arrived, they found 25-year-old rapper Brandon Wamley, better known as Wam Spinthabin, suffering from gunshot wounds. He was rushed to a nearby hospital but later from his injuries. Detectives treated the block like a war zone, canvassing door to door and searching for shell casings. Neighbors recalled hearing a series of shots and hiding in their homes, one man locking himself in the bathroom until the scene went quiet. Preliminary findings from police made it clear this wasn't a random hit. They believed the shooting was isolated and that Wamley and the gunman knew each other. That distinction separated it from the cycle of gang retaliation that's been tearing through Broward County. Still, the streets reacted fast. News broke online before the family could even process it, with some posts claiming Wam was gone while pages tied to him tried to deny it. Hours later, local media confirmed the leaving no more room for speculation. The Broward scene has been cursed with loss and downfall. Psycho Bob is locked up and his mother was HMT Trey is also in jail, with his mother too. Wiz the Wizard himself was found beheaded in Hallandale Beach. Kodak Black is the only one still active, though he's been spiraling with drug use. Against that backdrop, Wam stood out as talented and overlooked, just starting to carve his lane before the tragedy fits a pattern. Artists tied to Kodak Black often ended up locked or faded out of the spotlight. For Wam, just as his career began, family tragedy and street politics dragged him deeper. Investigators confirmed foul play in his, marking another name added to the streak of rappers lost from Broward. Wam Spin's background showed both talent and turbulence. He'd once been signed under Kodak Black's sniper gang through his cousin Wiz the Wizard, but over the years faced his own charges in Broward, including cannabis possession and making threats. His career, family ties, and the scars of losing multiple relatives had already painted a picture of someone battling demons while trying to push forward in music. By 2025, he'd spoken publicly about giving his life to God and moving past drugs after overdosing twice. But just months later, his life ended violently in the same streets that shaped him. The case remains under active investigation, with no arrests announced. Police continue searching for the suspect, stressing the connection between the victim and shooter. For the community, it's another reminder that even those trying to pivot away from the chaos can still get pulled back into it. Wam Spinthabin's story closed not with a rival's retaliation from someone he likely knew. Police were called out early in the morning after a neighbor discovered a body around 6 a.m. on Northwest 6th Terrace and 9th Court in Hallandale Beach. Wam was found lying on the sidewalk in front of a home. Detectives couldn't confirm if he was killed at that spot or if his body was dumped there. The man was later identified on social media as Broward rapper Wiz the Wizard, who had grown up in that same neighborhood. Law enforcement never publicly confirmed a direct connection, but weeks later, Broward County prosecutors tied the case back to local gang politics. HMT Trey, another rapper from the area, was charged in connection with Wiz's during a major takedown of the Danya Hot Boys, a crew prosecutors accused of running violent hits across county lines. The arrest brought heavy indictments, with authorities calling the gang's downfall the end of a reign of terror in Broward. Broward police confirmed that a violent gang responsible for multiple finally taken off the streets. 5 men went before a judge facing 33 counts tied to 8 and 12 attempted across the county. The investigation started back in January after 17-year-old Taryn Farrington was shot and killed outside a Best Buy in Plantation. He had just walked out of the store when gunfire rang out. 4 people were hit, including 2 customers. Detectives say Sigmund Brown, Kavarius Johnson, and Gerard Charles were behind that shooting, and a fingerprint at the scene put the gang task force on their trail. 10 months later, police made 8 arrests, pulling in firearms, stolen credit cards, and ammunition. Among the charges was the death of rapper Wiz the Wizard, real name Wisdom Johnson, who was found in Hallandale Beach in September 2022. Trayvon Key and Kavarius Johnson were both charged for that hit, tying the case directly to the same crew. Legacy and contradiction. The reality is harsh. The streets don't care. They didn't care that Wam already buried his cousin Wiz. They didn't care that he said he was done with the lifestyle. They didn't care that he tried to give his life to God. None of it mattered in the end. For Broward, it's another rapper gone, another family grieving, another reminder that tomorrow isn't promised. Wam Spinthabin is one more name added to a list of young artists taken too soon, leaving behind music, memories, and pain for the ones closest to him. Rest in peace, Wam. Wam's testimony made it clear how deep his story ran beyond music. He nearly died twice from overdoses, one that stopped his heart for 20 minutes and another that left him on life support for 12 days. Doctors and nurses in ICU had to bring him back, and he carried those experiences as proof of both the fragility of life and the possibility of change. He saw it as his duty to share that testimony, not for sympathy, but to show younger people in the streets that there was a way forward. Even after surviving, he admitted the pull of contradictions. His faith grew stronger. He spoke openly about praying, believing in God, and keeping a pure heart. But at the same time, his music still carried traces of the life he came from. He refused to fake it, but stressed he wasn't making songs to glorify anymore. Instead, he wanted to shift how he told his story. Still raw, still real, but without pushing destruction. He looked at the industry like a business. He didn't want to be trapped in rap forever. He dreamed about opening gas stations, drywall companies, even casinos, real investments that could build wealth outside of music. For him, rap was supposed to be a 4 or 5 year stepping stone, not a lifetime hustle. At the same time, he recognized the trap of perception. His look, his energy, and his aggressive image had people assuming he would bring problems into venues or deals. He pushed back on that, saying he wanted to perform, rock shows, and move smart with his team, not bring chaos. Still, he admitted the internet fueled much of the drama. Online, people trolled, provoked, and tried to bait him into reactions. For a long time, he fell into that cycle, clapping back at every comment, until he realized it was pointless. The same people calling him aggressive were the ones spreading rumors about Wiz's death. Wam wanted more discipline, more peace. He spoke about watching people in poor countries who had almost nothing but were genuinely happy, and it stuck with him. For him, success wasn't about chasing clout or feeding into negativity. It was about learning how to be happy, investing in the future, and staying true to his faith while carrying the scars of everything he had survived. Wam Spinthabin's death in August 2025 marked the end of a journey that was as turbulent as it was promising. He was more than just a rapper from Hallandale Beach. He was a young man who carried the weight of tragedy on his shoulders from an early age. Losing his cousin in 2016, then Wiz the Wizard in 2021, and close friends like others in between, he was forced to grow up in an environment where grief became normal. Those losses shaped the anger in his music, but they also pushed him down paths of self-destruction. 2 overdoses nearly ended his life before the bullets ever did, one leaving him on life support for nearly 2 weeks. Each time he came back, he spoke about God, about changing, about wanting to escape the streets, but the scars never left. The industry gave him moments of light. Being tied to Sniper Gang through Wiz, meeting Kodak on the day of the Super Bowl, and later signing with Alamo/Sony showed his talent was undeniable. He envisioned more than rap, talking about opening businesses, building wealth, and setting up a future for himself and his family. He was smart, driven, and knew the game was bigger than just the mic. But at the same time, it was hard for him to stay consistent. How the studio felt like a burden, and anger and trauma followed him everywhere he went. His murder wasn't labeled a gang hit or a random act. Police suggested it was an isolated incident, possibly tied to someone close to him. That makes the ending even more tragic, because it fits the pattern he always feared. Danger doesn't just come from ops. It can come from the people standing right beside you. The same streets he once spun through ended up taking him down. Wam Spinthabin leaves behind a legacy filled with contradictions, pain and resilience, destruction and rebirth, street credibility and glimpses of growth. His music captured the chaos of his life, and his story mirrors the reality of too many young artists caught between fame and survival. In the end, his journey is a reminder that talent and success can't always outrun trauma, and that in this world, tomorrow isn't promised, no matter how many times you've already survived the impossible. If you like this video, click on a video on either side to watch a video similar to this one.